You may have heard of the fight or flight response, but did you know there are many different ways people respond to threat? And that those threat responses activate and shut down parts of the brain, making certain activities impossible? And did you know that you can trigger these threat responses in people even when you think you're being supportive and friendly? Recognizing and supporting the threat response can be the difference between creating a high-performing team and culture or significantly wasting time, money, and energy in attempting to address continual behavior and performance problems. Ahoy, Bryce here from Bryter Training, and this video is part of our educational neuroscience series, where we apply learning theories and neuroscience principles to business contexts. In this video, we will be exploring the threat response and how it applies to the workplace. As always, if you find this video useful or thought-provoking, we're grateful for any interactions via comments, likes, subscribes, and shares. You can learn about it in our video on what the brain does. However, consider that the brain hasn't changed in thousands of years, and its primary purpose is to keep you safe. It does this by being good at identifying threats, recognizing patterns, and building social connections. We build social connections because we have a better chance to survive in a safe, trusting community. However, when there is no trust, clarity, or consistency, then we face a potential threat. In the workplace, this is vital to understand. All the things we want to achieve as a team, positivity, productivity, winning awards, having fun, feeling supported, come down to our ability to innovate, share, and support each other. Leaders spend significant amounts of time and money on training each year to help their teams collaborate, build trust, communicate better, to run innovation workshops, or be better leaders. However, all of these behaviours are only possible in the right environment. And if you don't understand how the threat response governs these behaviours, you are less likely to be able to instill them in the team. All sensory input that enters our brain is routed via the thalamus, in what is erroneously called the reptilian brain, and then to the amygdala, in the limbic brain. The amygdala filters the information searching for threats. If any threat is recognised, whether real or perceived, the hypothalamus is immediately stimulated to respond. It does so by triggering the release of stress hormones to prepare the body to defend itself. And it does this in one of several ways, which we label friend, fight, flight, freeze, flop, and faint. From a work perspective, it's essential to understand that these are automatic instinctive responses to threats. Your goal as a leader is to recognise and support it when it happens, or prevent it from occurring in the first place by becoming more aware. Friend is the earliest threat response we have. At birth, the amygdala is operational, and infants utilise their cry to bring a caregiver to them. The non-mobile baby has to rely on calling a protector to its aid, in the same way that a terrified adult screams in the hope that rescue will come. And this is probably not one that we will likely be seeing too much of in the workplace, however, it does happen. Now, fight. It's pretty straightforward. When threatened, an individual may respond with aggression or more subtle fight behaviours, for example being argumentative or attacking other people's ideas and input, or even attacking a person's physical, educational, or personal attributes. And next we have flight. This is any means a person uses to put space between themselves and the threat. It may involve sprinting away from perceived danger, but is more likely exhibited as backing away, avoiding, or distracting. What's that? When the amygdala decides that the other three responses are unlikely to work, it will elicit a freeze response. It is believed that immobility has several advantages in mammals when threatened by a predator. Namely, the predator has less chance of detecting immobile prey. But many predatory animals will not eat meat they consider to be dead. And that if the predator does kill, the freeze mechanism provides a natural analgesic. Hopefully, it isn't getting to that level in the workplace. However, if a staff member feels trapped and experiences significant threat, it can result in a freeze response. This is where managers tend to ask, "What do you have to say for yourself?" Or, "I want to understand, please explain." But if you don't get a response, this could be why. This is a serious consideration though, because when it gets to this point, the individual is feeling trapped. In animals, the freeze response indicates submission, and the dominant animal will often leave them alone. In humans, freeze is often ignored or taken as consent of the assault, whether verbal, physical, or sexual. Hence, someone saying nothing doesn't mean they agree, it means they can't disagree. Flop occurs if and when the freeze mechanism fails. The moment that threat increases, despite freeze having intended to put an end to the situation, the amygdala will trigger the autonomic nervous system to swing from predominantly sympathetic activation to parasympathetic activation. The body will shift from a frozen state to a floppy state, whereby muscle tension is lost and both body and mind become malleable. The survival purpose of the flop state is this: if impact is going to occur, the likelihood of surviving it will be increased if the body yields, and psychologically, in the short term at least, the situation will be more bearable if the higher brain functions are offline. People who have elicited flop as a survival mechanism are very submissive and will make little to no outward protest concerning what is happening to them. They will bend to the will of the person perceived as threatening in an attempt to stay alive. And when it all becomes too much, people may experience the faint response, where they completely lose consciousness. Somewhat of a combination of freeze and flop, but without the conscious awareness. This usually happens when the body or mind sees no way out and assumes the absolute worst. Let's apply this to the workplace. When we get stressed, our prefrontal cortex shuts down and we rely on unconscious thinking in the limbic system, which focuses on emotions and threats. But it's when we feel safe that our prefrontal cortex is active, allowing for more emotional regulation, problem solving, being open to learning, and higher order thinking. In this state, we are open to trying new things, making mistakes, and contributing to the greater good. Basically, it's all the behaviours you want to see in a team. When people feel safe, the social and higher order functions are active. When they are threatened, then they are likely to act on instinct. They cannot rationally process the data coming in. As a leader, the threat triggers may surprise you. There are hundreds of potential triggers. However, here are a few to consider from a work perspective. If people don't have confidence or competence to do a task you've assigned. If people are forced to work together before establishing trust and a connection. Diversity without understanding. Difference is perceived as a threat. Authority and titles. It threatens someone's social position. If someone feels like they could be voted off the island or thrown into the wild, this will trigger stress. So as a manager, don't assume that saying this is a safe place will make anyone feel safe. Coaching and feedback challenge people's status and confidence, which triggers stress. So, how do we make people feel safe? Well, there are different initiatives and processes that you can implement, so it helps to do a proper analysis and create a tailored intervention, perhaps by partnering with an organisational development specialist, as an example. However, a couple of things that you could do include ensure adequate communication so that people are clear on what is happening, when and why, since uncertainty equals threat. Minimise assessment and judgment-based reviews. Consider your approach to feedback and coaching and use a system that gives control to the employee. Be conscious of your behaviours as a leader. Ensure that how you act under stress and when you don't think you are being watched is consistent with your stated values. Ensure that people have a degree of autonomy over their work and approach. However, to support this, make sure people have the skills and confidence to do the job. Allow individuals time to connect before expecting them to trust and work together. Without connection and trust, collaboration is difficult. So, as a leader, understand that interpersonal, social, and communication factors all contribute to how safe or threatened an individual feels. Even something done with a positive intention, like coaching, feedback, or training, can actually trigger stress and threat. And when it happens, rational, considered, open-minded, high-level thought is difficult, and team synergy is almost impossible. This then leads to negative behaviour patterns and a lot of time and money wasted on interventions that don't fix the problem. So take the time to consider things that could make someone feel threatened. Look for behaviours in your workplace that could indicate when people are under stress. And instead of judging the behaviour, seek to understand the causes. If you're interested in training for your leaders or teams to help them understand, explore, and apply neuroscience principles to improve culture, productivity, and performance, then drop us a line to discuss options. Our contact details can be found in the description below. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.